What happened during the pandemic, and how did you guys deal with that?
It was spicy. It was super spicy. Shall I take you through it blow by blow?
Yeah, I would love it. What's the story?
It was pretty punchy. So we had February half term, famously really big for us. It's kind of the first like thawing of winter.
Yeah, this is 2020.
2020, yep. February half term, pizza and families is big. So like, it's obviously always a big week for us. Had biggest week the company had ever had in February half term.
And then how many stores did you have at that point?
It's a great question. I reckon about 17.
Wow, okay.
Something like that. So yeah, February 2020. And then our MD, who is a total legend, but is definitely on the kind of like germaphobe scale. He's like, this thing is getting quite big. Like, do you think this is going to be a thing? And I was like, this is so not going to be a thing. Every time it comes around, there's some kind of bird flu. It goes away again. It's nonsense. Obviously, we then had this like weird early warning system where like, a lot of people who work for us are Italian. And we started to get calls up from Italians being like, my mum's told me that I can't come to work.
Wow.
Like, obviously we'd seen it on the news and it was getting big and it was like, okay, so this is getting closer and closer to home. But we were getting like the real, like on your doorstep human reaction of like, I'm not happy coming to work. I don't know what this is. I don't know. And so this was growing and growing. And obviously, we were increasingly like aware of it. I remember I went around on a Sunday. I went to every pizzeria and just sat and chatted to the team. I was like, how do you feel about this? Anyone who doesn't want to work doesn't have to work. But obviously, we're not going to be able to pay you if you choose not to work. Totally respect the decision. There'll be a job there for you if you want. But, we've got to keep going. Then we had this like absolute nuclear moment where Boris came out and was like, and this is probably early first week of March.
Yeah.
He basically announced on the news that like people shouldn't go to bars, restaurants or clubs.
Yeah. They
shouldn't do it. But didn't close us down, give us any kind of like, support.
Yep.
So suddenly our revenue, which is already, we were definitely seeing the flag. We were definitely starting to see revenue come down quite aggressively by 7th, 8th of March.
Yep.
Then Boris comes out and was like, don't go to these places. And it went like through the roof, like absolute collapse. And so we were there, still open, still trading, but with no one coming.
Yeah.
And it was like
literally no one.
I mean,
or like little drops of production.
I think our revenue probably dropped by like 60 to 70% overnight. So like, I mean, we were open and trading, but we knew that every single day we were losing money.
Yeah.
Like, there's just no way that's going to work. So, restaurants famously thin margins anyway. So, losing 10, 20% is enough to cause you. Anyway, so that happened. We were like, what the hell do we do now? And basically we had to make a decision, and we did two things. One, we sat down and modeled out what we called the apocalypse scenario.
Ooh, okay.
Which showed 6 weeks of closure, which was like obviously nowhere near what we ended up having. And I remember, we'll never forget, we did it. We did the spreadsheet. It was the 4 of us senior bods in the room, did the spreadsheet, pressed enter, and it was like, oh, actually 6 weeks of closure, that's all right. We can survive this. Like, this is pretty good. And then after it was like, oh, forgot to link cell A to cell B. Boom, like business is gone in 6 weeks, like nothing left.
So why is it? Is it because you have to pay the rent for the stores and you've got to pay the staff, or like?
Yeah, so we were modeling it like with everyone still being paid.
Oh,
like,
okay.
No, this is obviously before like we didn't know anything about furlough.
That hadn't come around then.
So we had this week of like, right, we know that the business will implode.
Yes.
So what do we do now? We've got all these stores, they're losing money.
That's pretty scary. How did that feel when you saw the spreadsheet?
It was totally horrendous. And I genuinely did go to the human element of like, what are we going to do? We can't fire all these people. Like, what are they going to do? So we basically took the decision that our plan was, obviously, everyone was nervous of it, and it was like, we were getting a lot of like, well, why are you opening? Like, you shouldn't be opening. It's not safe, blah, blah, blah. We were like, no, the best thing we can do for the most people in this business is to trade our asses off as much as we can, keep the pizzerias open as much as we can, push out left, right, and center, tell the world that we're open and trading. And if you want to come and have a pizza, we're here for you. And basically give as many people as many hours to work as we can and hope that this all blows over, basically. And we did that, and we got definitely a lot of pushback. We got a lot of people telling us that we were irresponsible and blah, blah, blah. But we were like, I think this is the best thing we can do for everyone. Anyway, about a week after that, we got the sort of, your pizzerias now need to close. Everything needs to close and needs to shut by the end of today. But in that same, I think that was the day they told us we had to close. And it was like, you need to, by 11 o'clock at night, have closed everything up and gone. And you can do delivery, but nothing else. They also announced furlough.
Yeah.
And we were sat in this meeting. I never forget it, all of us on Zoom watching Rishi reading out what furlough is, and there was speculation of like, is it going to be 40% of salary covered? Is it going to be 60?
Yeah.
I think Denmark had done 60, so we were like, seems unlikely it'd be more than that. And then came out and said we're going to cover 80% of everyone's salary. And I literally remember like we were all just in tears. We were all quite drunk, drinking, like everyone was drinking whatever their respective drink was in their house, watching this happen, just being like, this is unbelievable. Like all these people are going to get 80% of their salary.
So the government was covering 80% of people's salaries.
So we went from, I think at that point we probably had 250 people.
Yeah.
We went to 250 people working for Pete's Pilgrims to 248 people on furlough.
Wow.
And who were getting 80% of their salary.
Which means that you just pay 20% or
no,
their salary goes down to 80%?
They unfortunately got 80%. They couldn't afford to pay the 20. But we took the decision at that point because we'd had so much like, I'm scared to come to work. I don't want to be. Yeah. We were like, we're not going to do Deliveroo. We're just going to shut.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to get 80% of their salary. They're going to be at home. Obviously, I would wish it was 100%, but it's not. Yeah. We subsequently topped up quite a few people to 100%, but it's difficult in an hour's business because obviously we did a lot of like what normal looks like. But anyway, we didn't have to let anyone go, which is unbelievable. Everyone stayed in the company. We closed all of our pizzerias and we were just like sat there being like, okay, so this is weird. We're going to survive, which was amazing because at the point, there was one point where it was like, well, we'll be out of business by April.
Yeah.
So we were sat there and then we started getting, after about 2 weeks of that, just going like, what the fuck just happened? We started getting calls from managers being like, do you know what? I'm really, really bored. And actually, if you're thinking of reopening a pizzeria to do delivery only, count me in type thing.
Nice.
That started to happen. And me and James were obviously like chomping at the bit to get a pizzeria back open because we were like, Jesus, we had all these pizzerias, all those pizza ovens burning and now they're all off. Anyway, so we decided after we had enough of those calls from enough people, we were like, let's open one. So we reopened Victoria, which had been our most recent opening. We were in what you call a rent-free period. So when you first take on a lease, you tend to agree a period of time with the landlord where you don't pay any rent, which helps to cover some of your capital expenditure. Yeah, sure. And I think we were in a sort of a year-long rent-free period on that store. So it's like, we'll open there. There's no kind of awkward conversations with landlords then about what the rent is because we're not paying rent anyway, so it's irrelevant. Yeah. So we can just open it. There's no kind of politics there. It's a good location and we'll do Deliveroo. So that was the plan. We started gearing up for that to happen. We were all very excited to have one open again. And then my brother, being my brother, just called me one day and was like, I've had this idea to basically put the ingredients for a pizza into a box and send it through the post to someone and then they could make a pizza at home while they're stuck at home. And I was like, but what do you mean? He's like, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you one. So you basically like put 2 dough balls, tomato sauce, mozzarella, parmesan, flour, oil, basil, literally into a pizza box in little plastic tubs and then wrapped it in wool. There's this proper company called Wool Cool. Yeah. So you put it, I mean, it's all pretty normal now really, but like wrapped it in wool with an ice pack, posted it to me, got it the next day through the post, opened it up. It had like exploded everywhere. But it was cold, probed the dough and it was like safe to save, refrigeration temperature. It's like, this could be a thing. So we were just looking, I think, for something to do on Instagram that was a bit more interesting than Deliveroo. Yeah. So like, why don't we make these kits? And this is before any restaurant meal kits existed. This is like, no one was doing it. It was the first one I'd ever seen. And why don't we make these kits? We'll put them up for sale. We'll make 50. We'll put them up for sale on Instagram. On the day we open Victoria, we'll make them available. And then we'll make them in Victoria with the team that are there. And we can just post them to people. And, it's just a fun thing for Instagram. Put 50 up for sale on that Wednesday, having promoted it, I think, on the Monday. And we sold the first 50 in like under a minute, having planned to sell them in a week. And we were like, okay, this is a thing. So then we did another 50 the next day, sold them in 20 seconds. And I was starting to get my head around Shopify. And I could see that like 200 people had tried to put them in the basket in the sort of 30 seconds that they were available. Ooh. And I was like, this is really interesting. So on the third day, we had this like sliding doors moment of do we try and scale this sort of, obviously there's a thing here. Do we try and slowly grow it, build our, ability to make them and like slowly expand? Or do we just try and sell as many as we can? Well, so we were like, let's just put 1,100 for sale. We basically put 1,100 of these kits for sale. So like you will get them at some point before the 1st of May, bearing in mind this was the 1st of April. And we're like, I think, we'll just do that, see what happens. And we sold all 1,100 kits in 40 minutes. Wow. And it was like, I think still the most profitable hour in the history of Pete's Pilgrims. And suddenly we had this thing where it was like, holy crap, this is a thing. And we were on like Sunday brunch and we were growing this thing. We then opened another pizzeria to try and meet the demand. We kept buying like chest freezers, a bit like that.
Yeah.
And then we'd like get all these ice packs and we'd fill these chest freezers with ice packs and be like, cool. So what? 12 hours later, you come back, they're all frozen. They weren't. So that everything was just chaos. Restaurants and production facilities are like as far apart from each other as possible. But by February 21, we were doing 10,000 units a week of this
Wow.
at home.
That's not bad.
I mean, we were turning over more than we were in the restaurants before COVID. It was mental.
Bloody hell, that's cool.
So literally, like this stupid idea just grew and grew, and it meant that we had cash flow the whole way through. We had everyone from like the Spice Girls to Stormzy to all these people made these kits. It's huge on Instagram. We grew our Instagram following by like 50,000. It was mad. And it saved the company. Remember, we had cash flow the whole way through. We were able to get a whole load of people off furlough to help us make the kits, and they obviously got their 100% payback. And we kind of feathered it in with, and then we were reopening pizzerias, and we still do Pizza in the Post today, as it was named, but it's obviously like so much smaller than it was.
Yeah.
But we have about 350, 400 subscribers who get it either once a week or
it's a
once a month.
subscription box type thing.
It now is a
that's clever.
subscription.
Yeah.
And,
recurring revenue. Love it.
Yeah, exactly. And, it meant that we never, ever sat still in COVID. It actually like made, certainly for the parts of the world where we don't have a pizzeria, people in Edinburgh have now heard of us where they wouldn't have done before.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing solution to the problem, basically.
Hey friends, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this clip, then click here for the full unedited episode. And if you like that, then do please consider subscribing to the channel. It means a lot. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.